Folks, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. I'll explain. Number one, it's absolutely free, means you don't pay a dime out of pocket. Number two, you can use creation tools to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, like I'm doing with my phone. Number three, if you want to hear it on multiple platforms, Anchor can do that for you. So you can hear it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, among others. And the thing is, you can make money without anybody listening, as little as that. And everything you need to do is to make a podcast is all here. To get started, please download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. You'll be glad you did.
Good morning, everybody. This week's guest has covered Georgia Tech for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution for quite a while now. He started in 1998, and the guest this week is Ken. Forgive me if I pronounce this name wrong. Sugiura.
Sugiura. Yep.
Sugiura. Ken Sugiura from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution joins me this week. Ken, how are you doing?
Doing well, Daniel. How are you?
Good, good. I was reading your story before I came on here about how you press on. I found it quite fascinating. Can you give me a little background on
that? On my history?
Yes.
Sure. Well, yeah. So I grew up in Chicago, and I grew up, loving to read Sports Illustrated and Chicago Tribune as I followed, the teams in Chicago, like the Cubs and Bears and Bulls and so forth. And I grew up at a time when, Michael Jordan and the '85 Bears and Ryan Sandberg were all kind of in their glory, and so it was a neat time to be a fan. But that kind of developed in me a love of sports journalism and writing, and I think it planted the seeds of the career that I've eventually had. I've been at the paper, as you said, since 1998 at the AJC, and I think it's the same things that I really enjoyed as a child of learning the stories and accounts of games and people and teams and so forth that I love to do still as a reporter covering Georgia Tech.
Yeah, one thing I really looked at is you covered a guy that named Wanye Thomas. He's a great player, very good player too, by the way, from what I've seen. He didn't allow a speech impediment to deter him, and look what he's done. I mean, that's quite an amazing story.
It is. He's a neat kid. He's actually from Florida, from Niceville, he was at the ACC Media Day, which I don't know how much your fans or listeners are going to know, but you go there and you're just going through a series of interviews. So all you're doing as a player or a coach is just talking about yourself and your team and so forth. And I knew, he's a senior, so I've got to know him a little bit, and I knew he had a speech impediment. And even on my way up, I kind of marveled that, it's not every kid that, whether they have an impediment or not, would want to go there and be subject to all that attention and scrutiny and the lights and so forth. But someone who, has an impediment, all the more so of, all those opportunities, challenges of speaking clearly and not having, a real challenge with communicating well. I can imagine a lot of kids his age being no way. And the thing is, I would say that he handles it really well, but he went there. He did great. He was really open with me, talking about the challenges he had and told me about his story a little bit. So it was it's stuff like that I really like to enjoy sharing with readers about kind of who really people are behind the helmet.
I enjoyed that very much. Yeah,
Thank
listen,
you.
When I want to talk about Georgia Tech this season, last week, tough loss against B-Tech. Not getting it done. You throw on first down and you run on second. I don't know what the deal is with that.
Well, yeah. I think it wasn't their best game, obviously, and they had some trouble with the offense. They were kind of hit and miss a lot of times. I think they've had some injuries on the offensive line, and Jeff Sims was kind of running hot and cold a little bit, the quarterback. I obviously I think a lot of fans, or not obviously, but there's some fans at Georgia Tech certainly that have some issues with the play calling it's always it's probably bigger than what you're doing on which down specifically. But yeah, it was a game that they were obviously counting on winning. Now they're 3-5, and if they want to make a bowl game, certainly have to win this game on Saturday against Miami.
Yeah. Knowing Georgia Tech's schedule down the stretch is brutal. Like you said, Miami, I think BC, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Notre Dame, I think that's the Mercedes-Benz, and then of course the rivalry game with Georgia, which was the absolute monster in college football this year.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, how has Jeff Collins kept this team together after what happened last week?
Well, I mean, I think, this is one of those times when you kind of find out how strong your culture is. And what I've seen, they allow us into practice a little bit. And what you see is that spirits seem to be out, they're practicing hard. Guys aren't down, but I think, I think, one thing he's done that as best I can tell, and certainly what you hear from kids, is that they like being on. They like the team. They feel like they're going in the right direction. The kids feel supported, and there's a good chemistry there. It obviously hasn't turned into the sort of season or record that they want, but I think things get held together just kind of depends on how strong the bonds are within that team.
Yeah, I looked at 2 years ago when they came down the Hard Rock. I mean, that was, we were almost at the same point as we will be on Saturday, almost, I should say. And the reason I say that is because Miami's won 2 in a row, going in against 2 ranked opponents, and then Georgia Tech comes in. That's a fear for a Miami letdown. When you came to Hard Rock 2 years ago, Georgia Tech had 345 yards total offense, and they won in overtime. What's the difference between that team and this team coming in here on Saturday?
I think one big difference is this team is much more capable offensively. They didn't also show it against Virginia Tech necessarily, but I think in Jeff Sims, they have a quarterback who can make a lot of big throws.
Yes, definitely that kid Gibbs is unbelievable.
Right, yeah, and Gibbs is very much. Sims is very much a run threat too, but then Jahmyr Gibbs, just a dynamic player. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a really good kick returner. And he's one of those guys, if you give him, just a little bit of space, he can bust it for you. And obviously, 2 years ago, Jordan Mason, who's still on the team, very capable back, more of a tough runner, can get you tough yards, and actually was all ACC that year. But I think in Gibbs, you have maybe someone who's maybe who is more of a home run threat.
Oh yeah, and
they're probably a little better on special teams aside from punting. But yeah, so it's the playmaking ability on offense, I think, is probably the biggest difference.
Yeah, most definitely. Sims I've seen is pretty good. I mean, you can't deny that. But yeah, when I look at Georgia Tech, when you have the ball, there's nothing scary about the Miami defense. But you could say the same thing about Tech's offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, they've had some inconsistency. They can hit you with a 50, 60-yard play with no problem, either with Gibbs or him or Sims throwing it to someone like Kyler McGowan or Donica Sanders or Malachi Carter. But they've been prone to interceptions, and they'll stumble and go a couple of series with 3 and outs and lose field position battle and so yeah, it kind of depends on how well they're playing. If they're playing well, I mean the best game they played this year against North Carolina, they scored 44 points and looked like ball beaters. But there's other games where they haven't.
Definitely saw that game at Mercedes-Benz against Carolina, and I was shocked how they dominated. At the time, nobody knew how far Carolina was going to fall at that point.
Right,
a pretty decent Carolina team.
Yeah, that was clearly Georgia Tech's best game of the season. They haven't quite matched that level yet, but yeah.
And I looked at against Virginia. Georgia Tech threw 65% of the time on first down and had its best performance of the year against an FBS defense. But last week, only 42% of the time, and the overall effectiveness went down. And then last week, when you run more on first down, it was worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what happened against Miami against Virginia is that they were down early, so maybe they were more having to throw. But yeah, that's I think it probably depends. Like, and I think it's hard to kind of. I mean, I think Dave Patton, the offensive coordinator. I think he's very much of the mind of we're going to do what we think is going to, be able to move the ball. I think they like what they can do with the run game. Maybe that's why they lean more towards it. But yeah, obviously that's a pretty significant shift in scheme.
Yeah, most definitely. And then how does Georgia Tech prepare for a very good quarterback that they're going to face this week in Tyler Van Dyke?
Well, that's I think they've got some issues there. I think they're last in ACC in passing efficiency rating. The secondary has gotten a little better, but they're certainly prone to eye discipline issues and letting guys loose in the secondary, which I'm sure is something Miami's well aware of. And also they haven't done a great job of tackling. Pass rush can be kind of
issue here down. That's been an issue, Ken, down here all year. I mean, the tackling's been a big problem here, as you've seen.
Right.
And I think I'm noticing that's an issue with Tech as well.
Yeah. It's not what you'd want out of this defense. It's pretty experienced, and you would hope that at this point they'd be a little better at. Obviously, it's a I've heard Andrew Thacker, the defensive coordinator, say this before, that maybe the hardest thing to do in football is tackling in open space, and obviously that's where the game is now. But yeah, obviously Miami is no shortage of playmakers in the wide receiver and running back, and obviously with Van Dyke. But yeah, getting after him, it'll be one thing worth watching is that may shift is they've been played a lot of 3 down the last several weeks. They moved to 4 down against Virginia Tech when they had some trouble stopping the run. We'll see what they do against Miami on Saturday.
Yeah, I noticed that when I see Georgia Tech on D, like I said, it's a hit and miss. I mean, you hit it big, like you said, against Clemson and Carolina, but missed against Pitt and Virginia Tech at times. Which I know if Van Dyke gets time to throw, they'll pick that Georgia Tech D apart. But if they come out and they play against like they did against Carolina, this could get very interesting. And I've seen your best defender has been Charlie Thomas, 8 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 picks, and he'll be all over the field to confuse what Van Dyke and Rhett Lashley want to do.
Right. Yeah, they're strongest, I think, at the linebacker group, and actually, yeah, what they do. Whether they go 3-3-5 or 4-2-5 will probably have some impact on how much Charlie Thomas gets in the field. But yeah, experienced secondary, they've got to play better, and I think they've been you're seeing a little bit, but they've just got to be more consistent. And obviously, when someone like Miami's obviously hitting a little bit right now, so that'll be I mean, my guess is a lot of these games in the ACC seem to be really going down to the fourth quarter and going down a play or two here and there. It won't surprise me if the same thing happens again on Saturday.
Yeah, like you said, you talk about your offense, McGowan, Carter. I mean, those are the big threats at wide receiver. Sims doesn't give it out a lot to other people. He only has 2 other receivers he relies on. That, of course, is being Gibbs and Sanders. I mean, Gibbs is 14.7 yards per catch, and Sanders has 3 TDs and 14.7 yards per catch.
Right, so you're saying he's limited in who he throws to? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, he doesn't spread the wealth as much, from what I'm reading.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it maybe depends on the game, but I do think, I think certainly someone like Gibbs, I think they're wanting to get the ball in his hands as much as they can. Adonica Sanders has really come on. I think Sims has come to really trust him. He had a really against Duke. They were down in the last couple minutes, and Sanders made 2 really big plays for him. So I think he's probably maybe starting to look for him a little bit more. But I think if you go back over the course of the season, Malachi Carter, Kyler McGowan, Kalani Norris to some degree have all been kind of their targets, I guess, and catches have gone up and down a little bit.
Yeah, I have to say that too. Let me give you my keys to the game, Ken.
Mm-hmm.
My keys to the game: 1, you have to cut down on penalties. Miami doesn't. We don't want to get in a sloppy game with Georgia Tech, especially don't play down to the opponent that's 20 plus SP plus rankings below you. And I think you have to stop the 1 because we all know how good Sims and Gibbs are, especially with the bad tackling and of course special teams. I think. How is Georgia Tech's kicking game?
Kickoff is really good. Field goal game is good. Punting is not as good. covering, I think they're pretty strong. I'd say they're certainly better than average.
Yeah, let me get your keys to the game, Ken.
Boy, I think defensively, just not giving up big plays. Tackling the ball and getting it down and making Miami just keep earning first downs. I think that's been a big problem certainly the last 2 weeks against Virginia Tech and earlier. So avoiding turnovers, which specifically Sim throwing to the wrong team. But then two, I guess, yeah, and I think just avoiding mistakes, whether it's in the secondary or not fitting against the run or holding penalties, whatever it is. I think that's been a real big problem for them as they've tried to get things together. So those would be three things I think definitely they're gonna have to do to try to beat Miami.
Yeah, I think, Ken, I'll let you go with this. Give me a prediction.
I'm loath to making them. I do think it'll be close. I think it'll go in the fourth quarter, and I think it's going to be one of those things. Who's going to avoid making a mistake is going to determine who's going to win.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's gonna come down. I don't think it's going to be as close as many are thinking. If Miami has turned the corner, really, this is the kind of game Miami wins. If it doesn't make mistakes, Miami wins comfortably. If it makes mistakes, it'll be close.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go Miami 31, Georgia Tech 17.
Okay,
that's gonna be.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, I will. Hopefully next year, when this whole COVID thing, we didn't play them last year because of COVID, obviously.
Right.
But I'm hoping to get to Atlanta at some point to see that place when we go up to play Georgia Tech.
Okay.
I mean, I understand Bobby Dodson, a very, very good place. My brother's been to Atlanta many times, so at least I know what to expect when I go up there.
Yeah, it's a neat location. It's right in the middle of Midtown Atlanta, so there's a backdrop of downtown and Midtown, all the skyscrapers, and it's a lot of stuff going on campus. So yeah, I encourage you to make a visit.
Yeah. By the way, yes, congratulations. By the way, to the city of Atlanta, world champion Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, very. Well, it's I think it's caught every little bit by surprise the way it all kind of came together, but everybody's really excited for sure.
Yes. Anyway, Ken, thank you very much for coming on this week. Enjoy the game on Saturday, and we'll talk again down the road.
All right, Daniel. Thanks so much.
Welcome.